Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I wanted to speak to my amendment to insert new clause 5B and inject some sense back into the debate after that tirade from the member. But before I do, Mr Chair, I just wanted to record that my pleasure that good sense has prevailed in the ports, and actually the workers at the ports have agreed to go back to collective bargaining and not to contract out the workers or make them redundant. So I'm very, very pleased about that, and we will see, I think, a return to productive employment, and I hope productive employment relationships, which is indeed what Labour's legislation was always about. It was always about good faith, about productive employment relationships, about mediation as the first call on disputes. But gradually what we've seen from this government, of course, is an interference in that, and this is what this bill is too. My amendment on clause 5B is to make sure that indeed if this bill goes through, there is not more interference on the right of workers to have a secret ballot, which is what the member insists must happen, insists it's about democracy. But actually what we have at the moment, thanks to this government, is an impediment to access to a workplace. They have to, under this government, workers and unions have to get permission from the employer to enter the workplace. And they have to get, it's getting harder and harder, and in fact, Tully's AFCO, you know, as everybody knows, is locked out. We're not talking about strikes here, and we're not talking about secret ballots of Tully's shareholders. We're talking about illegally locked out workers, and there's stories coming out of that there about how they were illegally, the union was illegally denied access time and time again to their workers in the meat plants, and by the time they got to them, of course, the management had been in their ears, had threatened them, had put them on an individual contract. So my amendment, Mr Chair, is to make sure that that situation is avoided, because if the member and the government insists that there must be a secret ballot of workers before strikes, and as my colleague Andrew Lucas says, most unions carry that out already, but you know, they should do it in their own way, according to their own rules and according to their own democratic processes. But however, if the member insists on it, the union should not need to obtain consent for access to a workplace in order to hold a secret ballot. Because if the employer can stand in the way of a union obtaining access for the purposes of holding a secret ballot, how on earth is the member's objective of requiring a secret ballot before a strike going to be met? How is it going to happen? How is that the purpose that he says is all about democracy and the crying and all the rubbish that he talks about from his 30 years ago when he was the worst union organiser in New Zealand's history, all the rubbish from that. But however, you know, accepting all that, look, I'm sure that the member and the chair does not want to see the provisions of his bill impeded by employers who can deny access to unions who come in order to carry out the requirements of his bill. And it will be very, very interesting, in fact. Yes, and it will be very interesting to see what happens, in fact, if an employer chooses to deny access for the purposes of a ballot, holding a secret ballot. Does that mean then that the workers just can carry on and have a strike because they've been denied access to a secret ballot? Does it mean the employer's broken the law in terms of this allowing a secret ballot to be held? Does it mean the union's broken the law because it hasn't been able to hold a secret ballot? I mean, these are things I don't think the member has thought through. And as I said in previous discussions on this bill, we genuinely tried to assist the member to meet his objectives by doing it in a very, very simple form, which was the previous amendment, new clause 5A, which was about simply putting it in unions' rules, requiring that there must be a process for holding a secret ballot. But what his bill will do is make sure that there can be interference by employers, and there already is in places like Tallies, that there will be interference not only in the process of secret ballots and challenges in the courts and tying up the courts and compliance costs on unions that are just trying to, like the Oceania workers who are just trying to make sure that their workers, their members, who are on $13.61 an hour, 11 cents an hour above the minimum wage, can 11 cents an hour above the minimum wage. Shocking.
Does it happen under this government?
Jan Logie.
I'm pleased tonight to speak on behalf of Denise